So I'll follow up and ask about why you're running for select board. You're here. Okay, and we're gonna get started in about 60 seconds. Thank you. They were good. Yeah. All right, let's just give it another 30 seconds. All right, we ready to go? Okay, everyone, we're going to get the candidate forums started at the Bradford Public Library and also online. We have 5 candidates here today with us. One of them won't be able to join us today because he's working. But in a moment, we'll meet our candidates and I'll ask them to introduce themselves. We will be asking questions. I will be asking a few questions to get us started, but then I hope to turn to the audience here and online in Zoom to ask the questions for the remainder of the morning. I'm going to ask the candidates to limit their responses to 2 minutes. And I've got a timer here in front of me. If you are approaching the 2-minute limit, I'll wave my hand and sort of give you a heads up that you're getting there. For the people who will be asking questions today, I'm going to ask you to, in the room, to ask a question and not necessarily deliver a preamble before the question. Just try to be as direct as you can. I will also ask everyone to direct your questions to all candidates, so they all have an opportunity to respond, not necessarily one directed to an individual. If you do that, I will try to recast the question in a way so that we can hear from all 5 of us here. Let's see. Gail's going to go over a couple ground rules for the folks who are tuning in via Zoom. So Gail, the Bradford Public Librarian, can you?
Sure. So welcome everybody zooming in. I'm asking that folks can type in or speak in or put their questions in the chat, and then I can ask them or read them out loud to your candidates for you. Other than that, I just hope that ask everyone to keep themselves muted, and you'll be able to see who's speaking with the technology that we have on the center of the table. So,
Works for me. And just one more thing for the folks here in the room. Of course, the bathroom is downstairs if you need it. And we do have access via the elevator. Thank you, which is right outside in the hallway. But if anyone needs any help, raise your hand and we'll try to help you. All right, so we're going to get started and we're going to meet our candidates. And I'm going to start to my right with Marcey Carver. Marcey, could you introduce?
I'm running for the 2-year select board position. I've lived in Bradford for about 30 years, raised my daughter here. And I've worked in many different functions, and people may know me best as a real estate agent, but I've also worked at manufacturing plant and banking, and for a nonprofit educational institution, primarily in my role as a financial manager. That's my educational background. My most recent formal education was receiving a master's in accountancy in 2009, the same year that my daughter graduated from high school. But I also do a lot of other types of education and have been doing that consistently. Particularly in my role as a planning commission chair. I try to routinely attend Vermont League of Cities and Towns town fair. I attended conferences related to rural development, and tried to keep abreast of the opportunities that can come to Bradford. Am I done?
Yes. Thank you, Marcy. Carol?
I'm Carole Taylor. I'm a lifelong resident of Bradford. I've been involved in many community positions, and I'm also running for the 2-year term for select board.
Thank you, Carol. Josh?
Josh Allen, also long-term resident here in Bradford, 43 years, I guess now. And I think now is the time to get some new eyes in there in the select board and some new ideas, and that's part of the reason I want to get involved. Currently a small business owner locally. I raise 4 children here in this town, and I want to make sure that Bradford's a place that all of them can live if they'd like.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
I'm Michael Wright. I'm a current select board member. I grew up here in Bradford, went to the local schools. I graduated from Riverbend in the building trades program, moved away for a short period of time to the neighboring town of Fairleigh. I was a firefighter for them for 12 years. And then my wife and I bought a house here 9 years ago. We're raising 4 of the 6 kids. 2 of them have moved away to Virginia. I work in construction as a construction superintendent, managing projects anywhere from $1 million up to 38 is the current one. Managing 60 to 70 individuals on a daily basis. Just looking forward to being reelected and keep moving forward in positive direction.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And Ralph?
Yeah, I'm Ralph Messenger. I'm a lifelong resident of Bradford. Born and raised, grew up here. Currently raised 3 kids here, 2 of which are raising 2 of their own kids here. So I got a lot invested in the town over my lifetime, and just thought time was right to try something different.
Okay, great. Thank you. And of course, our 6th candidate is John Larrabee. He was unable to be here, as I think I mentioned at the beginning. Yes, he's working today, so he sends his regrets. Okay, so let's move on. I did want to ask, give the candidates a little bit more of an opportunity to say why they're running for select board, if there's anything in particular or general. We heard from a couple of them who touched on it. Carol, let's start with you. You're currently sitting on the select board. Why are you seeking return to the board?
Because I feel that I can offer something to the town, and I have the time and the energy to put into it.
Okay, great. Marcy?
I'm running for select board because I have an interest in helping Bradford to move forward, to look at new ideas, have new vision for the town, and I have the time and the energy to do that. I also have a great deal of experience working on the planning commission for 10 years and in other capacities. So I select board work to have a more collaborative and open process.
Okay, great. Thank you. Josh, let's go to you.
All right. I think probably one of the biggest things for me is keeping the town cost effective for the residents that are here. Also making it a place that people want to come back to or stay in when they live here. So again, due to having children here, I would love to have my grandchildren here at some point, and I think that we have to make it affordable for people to do that.
Okay, great. Michael?
Yeah, I've been on the select board for 2 years. I feel we've accomplished a lot in the past 2 years, even through animosity. There's a lot of stuff still on the horizon to work on, such as North Pleasant Street, the bridge down here, work we're working on with the fire department. Policies and ordinances updating and such as the newest code of ethics. I feel I can be a benefit to help with all that, and just look forward to trying to keep moving forward in a proactive way instead of a reactive one.
Great, thank you. And Ralph?
Well, as I said in my introduction, kind of got a lot of family vested in this town. And, I've done 23 plus minus years with the fire department. In the 90s, I was a police officer with the Old Village Police Department, been a town constable here. So I've done a fair share of stuff to give back to the town. And I thought, kind of to echo Josh a little bit, we need to make this a place that people want to stay. I have 2 kids here, I have grandkids here. I'd like them all to be here. And if we can't keep the town affordable, not knowing what's coming down from state level or federal level, we're gonna lose that. I think I have a decent background and knowledge of how things work, that I can be an asset to the select board and work with the other 4 members really well.
Great, thank you, Ralph. All right, I'm gonna ask, we're gonna move on to sort of policy, I guess, type questions right now. And one question I wanted to ask to get us started today was to follow up something that's come up at town meeting the past couple of years. Road salt has been brought up at town meeting the past couple of years by members of the public who had some concerns about its use. And so I wanted to get a sense, especially with a big winter storm bearing down on us probably tomorrow, what your thoughts are on what's been brought up the past couple of years at town meeting, whether you think that the town should be doing something different with its use of road salt, whether it's doing what it should be doing, your thoughts. So let's start in the middle.
Yeah, no
Josh?
problem. So my thoughts on it, I think our town crew does a pretty fantastic job. I live on a dead end dirt road. They maintain it fantastic. I travel the roads of Bradford every day, lots of back roads, going to residences and doing work. I have a crew of guys that are out on the road often. When we travel to other parts of Vermont, I feel like some of those towns probably need a little more work. So the use of the salt is probably one of those things that, you know, what works best for what weather condition. I think that there's probably a lot of state policies on when they can and can't use the salt, and I guess doing that. So I think right now, currently, we're probably doing an okay job.
Good, thank you, Josh. Mike?
Yeah, I agree with Josh. I mean, I live up on top of Goshen Road and there are some mornings that I can tell when they use more salt than others, and it's based on weather conditions. I think part of the concern that the community has at town meeting is the price. The price increase isn't necessarily the amount being used, it's the price that it costs to get the product. There was a mention about different locations that they had concern about salt being used, which are done by the state, not by our town. So I think a little bit more informative what's being used where, but I don't feel like we're using too much salt. I think again, like Josh said, our highway department does a great job determining when to use it and how much, so. I'd rather have a little bit extra salt coming down off the hill than paying for a new vehicle going off the side of the road, so.
Great. Ralph, over to you.
I guess I have to echo Mike and Josh. I travel a lot for work up and down various roads to various towns, and I'm always glad when I come back into Bradford and have to travel on the Bradford town roads. So I think Phil and his guys do a great job, and I think they know what's best for the town. Maybe sometimes they do use too much salt, but as these guys said, I'd rather have too much salt on some of my roads and slide off.
Okay, great, thank you. Carole?
I'm gonna agree with the guys. I think our road crew does a fabulous job on the roads, and I am co-road commissioner, and Phil does stay in touch with me and let me know what he's doing. He has cut back on salt, so I think they're doing a very good job.
Okay, great, thank you. And Marcey?
So I believe that's been brought up a couple times by Ben Rubenfeld, and his issue is not so much cost, but the damage that salt does to our fish and wildlife. And there are other ways to salt the road. You can use brine, which I think he spoke about, which might result in less salt usage and less damage to our rivers and streams. There's an offside to that I think brine can cause rusting out of equipment. And so I think it's a technical question that's worth being investigated by the road crew, and I think Phil was open to doing that. But I also welcome someone like Ben Rubenfeld asking the question and getting the town to think about different ways to do things, not just sticking with the same old approach. As far as the way Phil, good things about it. When I first moved here, I think I slid down my road numerous times, many times having to walk up Hackett Hill Road, which is a very steep road. The past 10 years, beautiful. It's just been an awesome job.
Great, thank you. I want to stick with the roads for just 1 second, but it's less of a maintenance question and more of a public safety question. Of course, last summer we had this interstate closure, and so that shifted a lot of cars on the town road, well, onto the state roads. But we heard lots about the excess traffic and that this closure caused. And so I wanted to get your sense of what we should be doing this summer, what Bradford should be doing this summer, because it's almost certain that the interstate will again be closed, or at least the southbound portion will be closed. And we will again have traffic being diverted onto 25 and 5. And whether some of the residents who live on those roadways have some concerns about this excess traffic. So, and also we've heard complaints generally about speeding in town, of course, from time to time, not just that caused by the I-91 closure. So wanted to get your sense of what the town should be doing there. So Marcy, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I think there will be two things. If the interstate is closed again, that will definitely cause problems in town. In 2027, as expected, the Waits River Bridge will be closed, and that will cause additional traffic for probably most of that summer, if not longer. And so there are a couple of things that we can do as a town and as a select board, working with the state to encourage reduced speeds on 25B. It's somewhat limited because we're only a village designation that we can't get reductions below 25 miles per hour, but it still is something that's really important to be done, particularly 25B, which is such a narrow road. And it's a residential road on top of that. I think it's important for the town, the select board, the road commissioner to work with Two Rivers and with the state transportation department in advance of situations, not, as Michael said, not reacting, but let's be proactive. I think we should set up a committee related to the closing of the Waits River Bridge to look at the whole picture for it, the traffic issues, but also how are we going to help our businesses who will be affected, and how will we help to energize the town once we get this new bridge.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marcy. I think we'll go across the table next to Ralph. Ralph, what do you think about it?
Tricky subjects in my opinion, but I think Marcy's right. We need to be proactive for it and need to, as a select board, as road commissioners, as road foremen, work with the state to get a handle on how this is gonna, I don't see the 91 closure doesn't really affect this portion of town. You gotta deal with it on Route 25 for a mile or so, half mile, and then you get Route 5. There's a lot of folks here that remember 20 some odd years ago, that section of interstate was closed northbound and southbound for 7 months, 8 months, almost a year. We survived it pretty well, so I think we can survive that section. Now the Falls Bridge down here, that is gonna cause traffic. And not only do you have to take care of Route 25B, but we gotta think about the traffic that's gonna try to sneak across the Creamery Bridge. And that it could be detrimental to that bridge if, I've seen it. I hear reports that now trucks that shouldn't be on here sneak across it, and it's only gonna get worse. So we need to be proactive and sit with the state traffic and that stuff and figure out a solution to keep this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ralph. Carole, over to you.
Well, I think we're gonna have to figure out an answer to this because it's gonna be very difficult when they do this road work. And I think that they're gonna plan on closing the Creamery Bridge, that road totally when work begins. Well, yes, for that especially, but I think they're concerned about it for any time that there's a road closure. So I'm not sure what the answer is to.
Okay, thank you, Carole. Mike?
Yeah, I can tell you what actual board currently is working on. So the board in the past year heard a lot about speeding. Moreau Benjamin actually had the project of getting a speed study done, and the town has actually bought speed signs to go up at the end of the streets on North Main Street and down here at the Falls to help flash and slow people down. As far as when the bridge closes down, V-Trans came to a meeting and they presented that they are going to supply a sign package that they will put up as far as guiding people around, and I'm sure the town will close down Creamery Bridge, not just to save that bridge from tractor trailers that get rerouted and such, but also just to protect foot traffic on there with excess traffic. So the speeding's a tough thing. The board did meet with Chief Robinson. He did up the patrols, but on the other end, then you get people that complain they're getting pulled over too much on the way to work. So speeding is just something, if you see something, say something, and that's a work in progress. But as far as the flow of traffic, it's just kind of putting out a notice to those ahead of time that live up on South Main Street, all the way down to Route 25, and just making them aware that from, 26 to, the end of 26, have excess traffic and just monitor it for pedestrian safety on the sidewalks and such.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Josh?
Well, I attended the V-Trans meeting at the select board as well. And they have information that was really critical and gave a lot of information as far as like the sign package and what was gonna happen, and starting really early on the project, letting the town know about it gives us. I think the speed through the area, hopefully with V-Trans being involved, maybe we can get the state police to do some more patrolling in the area too, on top of our local PD. And control that. The Creamery Bridge has been a problem for years. It's a great way to get around and through town when you're zipping through, but it's not a great bridge, and obviously with the added stuff, closing it is important, but it really does limit us now to one way in or out of town going south, so it will drastically increase that traffic. The intersection of 25B and 25 is not a good intersection, lots of crashes there all the time, so probably some additional signage there. And again, patrolling and having a cruiser present often makes a big difference, so I'm sure they'll have flaggers involved in a lot of this too, and there's construction going on, which will help drastically.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, so I did want to turn it over to members of the audience. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hands. If not, not at the moment. Do we have anyone on Zoom who's got some questions?
And everybody out there zooming in, please, put your questions in the chat and we'll address them.
Okay, well, for the moment, then I'll keep going.
You got hands over here.
Oh, we do. Okay. Sorry. Did you have a question?
Sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about the way in which ARPA funds were handled. It is my understanding that when we got down to the last amount of ARPA funds, that those funds were used to pay employee salaries for the year in order to reduce our budget. And I'd like to know from the candidates, do you feel that using those funds for that purpose was a good way to move Bradford forward? And if so, how did that move Bradford forward, since the ARPA funds were supposedly allocated in order to make, to improve infrastructure and to invest in long-term projects?
Okay, thank you, Paula. Currently on the board, and then we'll go to the challengers. So Carol, can you respond to Paul's question?
I didn't feel that money should be used for that, but I've just been put back on the board, so I missed a lot of the conversation before that, so I'm not sure why it was on.
Okay, so yeah, that's right. I should mention you were recently appointed to fill a vacancy on the board, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Michael? can you
Yeah,
go
so
over
we
your-
had a lot of it came up, because there was an allocation for the skate park and such. It came down to the end where we had a recommendation from someone from the state that, they recommended that we do that. Otherwise, if we didn't have the money spent by the end of, 2024, we would have to give the money back. So by doing this and doing that, it gave us a surplus of almost $300,000, which now we can use for projects and such, rather than giving that money back. So, it was either find a project to hurry up and get it spent, which we felt we weren't gonna be able to achieve that. And it was the way for us to keep that money. So that's why we have the surplus we have, and it's from those ARPA funds.
Okay. Ralph, do you have a thought on this?
Well, and not knowing exactly the whole circumstances, but understanding what Mike just said, that, you're at a use it or lose it phase, and I guess it's better to allocate it to something that you're gonna need to pay anyways, and then be able to have that money as a surplus on the back end, or nearly the same amount on the back end that you can put back into these other long-term projects and other commitments that you would have lost out on if you just sat on the money and did nothing with it.
Okay.
So I think it was a good idea.
Okay. Josh?
Yeah, I guess hearing Mike's explanation, I wasn't aware that that's how it happened. I didn't know that there was an end date on the ARPA funds. I thought that the money was in the bank and this was allocated to us specifically. So hearing that, I think from one account to another in order to keep it. My concern would be that we make sure that that money then stays there for those projects and doesn't then get spent on other things that it shouldn't have been spent on, so that's kind of my big.
Got it. And Marcy,
So to reiterate what Michael said, what happened is that the select board did agree to allocate $195,000 towards the skate park, which is part of that excess $300,000. But the government, the federal government changed the rules on ARPA so that it wasn't so much that we, the town had to spend the money by 2026. They actually had to have a contract in hand by the end of 2024. And the skate park originally was going to have the contract in hand by June of 2025, I believe. And that change in timing caused us to need to do something with that excess funds. And the only viable option, according to Two Rivers and other work that the select board did, was to move it into paying salaries. That was considered reasonable use of the funds so that we didn't lose it, which would have been terrible. And I agree with Josh that if we have those projects that we agreed to spend the money on, but due to circumstances beyond our control, we couldn't do it. I think we should honor that objective, the longstanding effort that's been made by the community towards obtaining a skate park. And we'll have the opportunity to vote on that in town meeting.
thank you. I think we had one more question here in the room. Peter, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to ask candidates what their feeling is, what their vision is for Bradford, which is now, I would characterize Bradford as a small town with a variety of some manufacturing, some housing. What's your vision for the town going forward as far as growth goes? You want to see a lot of dense, large homes. What's your vision for the town going forward?
Okay, thank you, Peter. I think we'll start to my right here. Marcy is the former planning commission chair. I know she's had a lot of discussions on this subject. So Marcy, do you want to answer
Sure.
Peter's question?
So when I was on the planning commission, we just recently had completed a housing study looking into that. And previously, a few years before that, we did a build out and capacity study on the lower plain. And the general sense was from surveys that were conducted in the town, that people wanted the lower plain to be developed to look somewhat similar to our existing downtown with a mixture of buildings and to steer away from large box stores and construction that looks similar to the mini mall, which was popular in the 70s. And the housing study, we focus on where we have infrastructure in place, where we have water and sewer, where we have roads, and we have good electric access. That study demonstrated that there's a tremendous amount of capacity within the town where we have this infrastructure, where we can have housing, not looking at super large apartment buildings that would not mix well with our current environment, but we certainly can have small homes, we can have multifamily homes, we can have condos, and there are plenty of opportunities to do that. Obviously, there's a place like right across from the library, which is the former Low Mansion, which is about a 5-acre parcel that could be developed in a multitude of different ways. And then there's also the Bradford Veneer Mill with the former community garden. Again, gives opportunity for development within the confines of the current zoning that has reflects a small town type development.
Thank you. I think we'll continue around the table. So Carole, you're up next.
I'm all in favor of the smaller houses or the one-family houses, and I think that we need to look into that because there is a need for it.
Okay, thank you. Josh?
Housing is a crisis all over Vermont. The cost of housing in Vermont has skyrocketed since COVID. And the ability for our younger adults to own or have land in this town, in the state and this town, is almost impossible. So I think revisiting some of the zoning laws and looking into some of the options to maybe offer opportunities for those people to get housing or things. I don't think large apartment houses are meant for Bradford in any way. I wouldn't encourage that, but we definitely need to get more housing for our locals.
Mike?
Yeah, I'd like to see the lower plain, get more developed, more commercial to utilize our. Water sewer expansion and stuff down there and property that's down there that's, not built on currently right now to. Be looked at to have buildings built on it, rather than necessarily maybe recreational areas and such like that. Utilize the resources for that area. As far as the downtown, I'd love to see the empty spots filled up. And then as far as housing, I do think we need more affordable housing. I think Jonah Richardson's doing great on some of these old apartment buildings, revitalizing those and getting those people in there. And also, I believe the planning commission is currently working on some village designation to give more rebates, discounts, and availability for people to get funding to do these projects. It's easy to say, let's go ahead and build on this empty, but if there's not funds available to do that. And then look at some of these lots, such as down North Main Street, that may have room out back of an existing building to put. Seeing how we can grow in those areas before we overdevelop those.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Ralph?
I'm very much in favor of, yes, Mr. Terry described it as the small town of Bradford. Therefore, much more inclined to support single family housing versus just throwing up multi-unit apartment buildings wherever it can be. And I think maybe we need to take a look at the zoning and see how we can maybe make it easier, not just within the village or the lower plain, but as a town as a whole. For as Josh said, the younger people to be able to get in and to afford to to buy a piece of land and build a single family house and raise kids. I work in construction and the prices are just, they would blow your mind. Literally blow your mind what it costs to build a single family house now. And so, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you, Ralph. Gail, did you have some questions?
There's a
online?
question online.
Are you ready for another question?
Oh,
I have one right
hold
here.
on, let's
Can
do
I-
that,
it says
we'll
here.
come to you later.
So, one of your viewers has a question for all candidates. As a member of the select board, how will you handle the opinions and wishes of your constituents when they conflict with your own?
Okay, thank you. Ralph, why don't we start with you and then we'll go back around this way. Can you answer the question?
Can you repeat that again?
As a member of the select board, how will you handle the opinions and wishes of your constituents when they conflict with your own?
I'm very open to discussing things with people, I don't. Draw the hard and fast line of it's gonna be this way or no way, so. I don't think I would have any difficulty if. Somebody's opinion differed with mine and we could sit and work it out at a select board meeting and figure out the best route forward and reach a compromise that both ideas can move forward.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I've had to deal with this the past 2 years, sitting on the board. I call myself no party. I don't look at Democrat, Republican. I try to look at what people tell me and vote on based on what the constituents talk to me about and put my personal agendas or feelings aside. I made a tough decision in 2024 with not allowing the Conservation Commission to move forward with the land purchase. My personal belief was yay, but my constituents and others in Bradford, I listened to them out and I have to weigh the options and I voted the way that of the public opinion and stuff. So I do put my personal feelings aside and listen to others and vote based on this information that I get.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Josh?
I think that's the best part is having a board of people to discuss it. Having multiple people gives you multiple options and being willing to work with everybody is really important. Remembering that you're here for the taxpayers of the Bradford and what they would like, not just your own beliefs. So definitely getting out and listening to the public and doing that is really important because you're not supposed to bring your own views, you're supposed to bring the views of the town of Bradford. So
Okay,
really important that one.
great, thank you, Carole.
I have to agree with that. When I was on the board before, we had many issues that we discussed and we came to a conclusion as a group and I thought we handled it very well.
Okay, Marcy?
I think it's really important to listen to what people have to say about different issues. I think that's how you come up with the best solution. When I was on the planning commission, I strongly advocated for having diverse group of people on the board. We had very frank discussions. One member in particular had very strong views on development. And I always supported him continuing on the board because I felt that he provided a unique perspective that we needed to listen to. And I feel that that's definitely important with the select board. In recent years, that has not always been the case, and I have often observed where people who are expressing different views would get shut down and discussions would be terminated abruptly. And I feel that the select board, I think that manner of operating the select board is not helpful to the community. It doesn't bring the best information to the select board. It becomes somewhat intimidating to actually appear in a select board meeting if you, and I would make every effort to include all opinions and come to a consensus and then move forward, not relitigate, but just keep moving forward. I think that's very important.
Great. Thank you, Marcy. I know we have one more, another question in the room. We're gonna get to it in just a second, but I did want to just let everyone know in the room that if you would rather write down your question and have Gail or I read it out loud. There are some note cards here, some index cards on the table, along with some pen. There were some, oh yeah, no, there are pens. So just if you want to do that. So Larry, did you have a question?
Yeah, my concern is police protection during those hours when the two policemen we have are not on duty. I live on a street with a fact, evenings and nights, we have no police protection. I shared this with my son-in-law, and he said, you better get yourself a gun, because if you call 911, there's no one going to respond in a timely fashion to someone in the village.
So do you have a specific question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, what would you do about that?
All right, well, let's start. Carole, do you want to respond to Larry?
I guess I'd keep calling, because I'd want somebody to respond.
Yeah.
Somebody has to respond. It may not be instantly, but we have no choice. We only have a part-time police department, really, with just 2 officers, and
Can I follow up? My question is, would you expand the existing police department?
oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
Yeah, no, I wasn't more specific than that.
Yes, I would like to see it expanded.
Okay. All right, well, how would the rest of the table feel about expanding the police department? Josh?
I'll go next. So I grew up in town, just down the road from Larry, actually. When I grew up here, I rode my bike everywhere. I was out until all hours of the night. You know, if I wasn't at my house, I was at the neighbor kid's house or somewhere else. I felt super safe. There was never a problem. I currently have a 10 and 11-year-old. I would not let them anywhere in this town alone. It's really scary to me. I was involved in an incident at the park and ride where there was somebody that tried to enter a vehicle of a young girl, and basically the police let them walk away. So I think the bigger concern is supporting the police that we have. Growing the police department might be an option, but holding accountable the state for what they're doing for their policing and making sure that they have the ability to respond. If we're paying them tax dollars, then they owe us that at a minimum.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ralph?
so short-staffed.
Yeah, like Josh said, I grew up in this town, and man, I don't ever remember being home much after the sun came up and much before dark. And, you know, I raised 3 kids here, and it was kind of the same back then with them. We could, you know, but nowadays with my grandkids in this town, no, don't go anywhere without an adult. I'm very much opposed to costing the town more money. And if we could expand the police department, which I'm very much in favor of, I'd love to do it, get some more officers here. Everybody across the state for police is short staffed. The state police is losing people left and right. And it's a travesty, because we got issues like Mr. Coffin spoke about. We had an incident in my road a couple months ago, maybe a year ago now, I don't know, where somebody that was clearly intoxicated drove into the ditch at the end of my road. I called 911. I was on hold for 20 minutes. No response. Some truck came along, pulled the guy out of the ditch, and he weaved his way down the road. And when the trooper or somebody at St. J Dispatch came on and said, what can I do for you? I was like, nothing now, you're going away. So we need to very much in favor of expanding this part of this town.
Thank you, Ralph. Marcy?
Similar experience to what Ralph had at my house, which is out at the end of a shared driveway. And I called the state police. It was the middle of the night and it took them over an hour to come. There were 3 people outside. So I understand the fact that we don't have adequate police protection, either from the state or from local. I don't think we could hire somebody if we even did expand the police department. Because I think they're very Russian who would come to Bradford, who would work for what we can pay them. I think it's a almost insurmountable situation. I am very disturbed by what Larry Coffin said, that there's a known area of criminal activity occurring, and that seems to have been going on for quite a long time. And I think that's something that the select board should be looking into on an independent basis, perhaps working with the Public Safety Commission to figure out a way to adequately deal with that. I'm personally aware of a property that I own in town that has a neighbor that's involved in criminal activity, and I really am at a loss as to what I can possibly do about that. So I think the select board does need to step up and take some responsibility for it. I don't think the easy answer of adding more police would solve it. I think it's a complicated question.
Okay, thank you, Marcy. Mike?
Yeah, so first of all, our 2 police officers do a lot more than I think a lot of folks realize behind the scenes. I would love to see the police department grow. However, I know several years ago it was brought up and no one wanted to fund it. Taxpayers didn't want to fund it, and it does cost a lot of money. And like it was meant, locations and such, offices are working on it. It takes time to build the case. And if you don't get a case built up, then these folks are just going to get let go. Speeding, you don't lose your license anymore for unpaid speeding tickets. People know that, they just speed because they know there's no penalty now in the state. A lot of these criminals are getting locked up and turned around, and the state just lets them loose. So you have to build up a case to really keep them in there. Our police department is very busy between our part-time officers. Once they get something they're working on, to do the paperwork down at the office. There's been comments in the past that they're just sitting there in the office doing nothing, and I don't believe that's true. You know, there's a new case that just, the Nichols case that just came up. You read it all in the Journal Opinion and such. That's a big case. I think we're very lucky with Chief Robinson's relationship with the Vermont State Police Department. We do have a couple of Vermont State Police officers that do live in town that actually patrol us. I would hate to be one of these towns like East Corinth, Thompson, Newberry that have no police coverage. So I think we need to be very lucky on what we do have and try to support them and communicate with them. And again, see something, say something. And maybe they are working on that house that Larry's talking about, and we just don't know it. And again, it's building a case. There was a similar one right up by where Josh grew up on Pleasant Street. It took some time. They went in there and they apprehended the individuals, and I think it was 3 days later they were released. So it's not an easy thing. I grew up here. I used to be one of those kids that would run around playing cops and robbers and whatever. And now, yeah, I keep my kids up on top of the hill unless I supervise Middlesex Park. But it's a lot of people have changed here in the community. We have a lot more unhoused in the community. And again, it's not just small time like it used to be.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, did you want to ask? Yep, and we'll get to you in just a second today.
A question from the Zoomers. The select board recently created an unbudgeted town administrator position and promoted from within without doing a wide professional public search. How do you feel about the administrative capacity of Bradford and its ability to meet the increasingly complex needs of a small town?
Okay. I think that's, can you read that question one more
Yes.
time? Yeah.
The select board recently created an unbudgeted town administrator position and promoted from within without doing a wide professional public search. How do you feel about the administrative capacity of Bradford and its ability to meet the increasingly complex needs of a small town?
Okay, I'm going to start again with the folks who are on the board. So Mike, can we start with you? Could you respond to that question?
Yeah, so this is something that from 2021 that was brought up from the visiting forums. It's something that's been in the conversation since then as far as the need for town administrator in Bradford. It has been budgeted in this budget season for those funds. Starting off first, as far as moving or hiring from within, our current select board administrative assistants came to the board asking for a promotion. So it wasn't necessarily hiring within, we gave that promotion based on the experience and knowledge to that position. And it is an interim 30 days, and at that time we'll revisit whether or not that person is sufficient. Does that fix all of Bradford's needs? Probably not. There's still economic development and other issues that we need to look at as well. But I think it is a first step in the right direction. The town administrator right now, with a lot of the duties that she's doing, it helps the board with a lot of the minutiae as far as like applications and liquor licenses. It speeds up for our commissions and committees purchase orders because they can go directly to this person, the communication with the community. So there is other issues that we could face with economic development in other areas. So currently, right now, it doesn't necessarily meet all of the needs, but Bradford's needs are changing. It's been mentioned in many boards. We have the most commissions, committees, and volunteer groups in many towns in the state of Vermont. So it's a constant reviewing of what we have. And the board does that during employee reviews, as what each employee is doing or what they could be doing, and it's adjusted accordingly.
Okay. Carol, over to you.
I think it was a good move to move that person in, and they're on probation for 90 days. If they don't do a good job, it can be posted, but I think that it was a wise move to start there.
Okay. Josh?
I saw the line item in the new budget. It certainly concerned me with such a large jump. I think there were several other large jumps in there that I don't know enough about because I haven't been involved in some of that. So I guess I would question those once I was on the board. I would definitely want some more clear answers. I've been approached by other taxpayers in the town about some of these things and what my thoughts were. And I said, you know, honestly, until I get more vested and get the information, I think our town report is kind of convoluted the way it's written and does not put it out there in black and white as well as it should. I think there's a lot of information that we should do better getting out to the public. And I think hiring within, again, it's a hard situation if they're already an employee. Sometimes it's easier to keep moving forward than to bring somebody new in. Training is very expensive. So I guess until I have more information, I don't really know that I would have done the same thing or not.
Thank you, Josh. Marcy?
It's really three questions, I think. One is, do we need a town administrator versus a select board assistant, which is what I think Daniel was previously. And to that, I say absolutely. There was the Moving Bradford Forward program, and then several committees focused on it. And that was identified as a clear need. It would streamline the select board, allow them to do a lot more things and not focus on liquor licenses and the use of the BA and that sort of thing, along with a lot of other things that a town administrator can do. So I'm glad that we finally moved forward on that. It definitely is someone who takes on the responsibility of a town administrator should be receiving more pay than someone who was just in the role of a select board administrator. So as far as the budgeting in for the town, if you agree with having a town administrator, then yes, you would need to be paying that person more than what the select board assistant was getting. They have more responsibility. They should be paid more. Whether you should have hired from within, that was an executive decision that was made, and I don't, like Josh and the rest of us that aren't privy to that, I don't have full understanding of exactly what transpired or why that was taken. I think Daniel Kingsbury has extensive history with the town, and I've always felt that she has made positive contributions in her role that she was asked of. Whether it should have been a widely posted position or not is something I think that bears conversation. My hope and my belief is that she can fill those responsibilities in the next 90 days. That would be great. And I forget the third.
That's okay. Yeah, you're hitting your time limit, so that's okay. Ralph, can we go over to you?
Yeah, like Josh, I'm kind of on the outside here, don't really know the whole story behind it, but my own feeling aside, is one person gonna fix all the administrative issues in the town? Absolutely not. Would 5 people fix all the administrative issues in the town? Probably not. Would this room full of people fix all the administrative issues in this town? Probably not. But it's a step in the right direction. And I think as far as hiring from within versus posting. If you have somebody that's doing some of the job. And is capable of doing the rest of the job and has been doing some of the job. I think it makes more sense to take that person, give them a promotion, make them, put them on a probationary thing as they did. See what happens, see how it works, like Josh mentioned, bringing somebody in from outside. From maybe there's an administrator in a different town, well, then they're gonna wanna do stuff the way they did it. And maybe not the way the current board wants stuff done, so I think that was a smart. With the 90-day probation or however they worded it, I'm not sure, but.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ralph. I think I said, Danae, you had a question?
Yeah, so here in Bradford, our operational infrastructure, it relies heavily on volunteer labor. We also know that we've had a challenge retaining town volunteers in recent years. As a town volunteer, I've also firsthand seen the struggles and oftentimes would feel like power struggles between volunteers and the select board. So as candidates, what is your plan to make sure that Bradford is retaining our volunteers instead of having to turn those into taxpayer funded positions? And also maintain positive morale among our town volunteers so that when new folks move here, they know how to plug in. They have the opportunity to learn about those opportunities to volunteer and that they want to continue doing it.
Thank you. All right, so why don't we start with the folks who aren't on the board currently? So Josh, do you want to?
I'll start with that.
Yeah,
So volunteers are very key. Obviously, I've worked on a lot of other boards and most of them are volunteer boards. People that are willing to help at no cost and not for any specific reason to advance their own political views, I think are very important. And I think the more you can utilize that and not spend taxpayer dollars, the better you are. So I would definitely want to work with the volunteers to make sure that the town of Bradford's getting everything we can out of everybody.
okay, great. Ralph?
Yeah, same here. Volunteerism is a key to keeping things A, affordable, and B, moving a small town like Bradford. And things work. So I'm all about being able to work with multiple people.
Gotcha.
And make it happen.
Okay, Marcey, over to you.
That's sort of a challenging question for me. I've been a long time volunteer for the town of Bradford in various roles. And I've also worked with elected officials who I actually kind of view as sort of volunteers because most of them don't get paid very much. Certainly select board members don't get paid very much for what they're doing. It's almost a volunteer position. And I agree with Ralph and Josh at how important volunteers are. This town wouldn't run very well without the volunteers that are here, many of who are sitting in this room right now. And I think that the select board can I would work to have the select board do a much better job recognizing the true value of volunteerism. I personally feel as a volunteer that I did it for nothing. And it's hard to beat that. I've worked for nothing. The Conservation Commission people, the Parks and Rec Commission, we all work for nothing. I mean, that's awesome. If we can, if everybody in town was running the town government for nothing, our property taxes would be a lot lower. I think we should encourage volunteers. When I was on the planning commission, I brought in younger people, which I think is also important. One of them is here at this meeting. I think it's really important to mentor and then encourage new people to come into town government and to be receptive to them. I think Conservation and Parks and Rec have done that to a great extent.
Okay, great, thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I think volunteerism's gone down a lot in numbers, work one job. Now they're working more, so they're working more hours to be paid, so they don't have all that to get through. Volunteer for me, I'm big on volunteering. I started out, Nancy Jones got me in blazing trails when I was 11 years old up at Wright's Mountain. You know, I've been on Parks and Recreation, Bradford. I volunteered for BYS, Ref and Games coaching. And I can tell you that I've reffed, I don't know how many basketball games this year, because they can't get volunteers even to do that. We do have that do show up. And then there's the fine line though on the town aspect as far as accountability and responsibility. Again, a lot of the legality times have changed. I'm not saying people are too happy, but we do have to watch the town's behalf as far things happen, because the town can be held liable, or the select board themselves. So it is just trying to build that relationship back better and figure out a way to not just necessarily entrust the volunteers, but get that communication, because I think there's a little bit of breakdown communication as far as what's volunteer and not. Again, what Marcey said, and I think others, is the town would be able to operate without the volunteers. There was a dedication to show that they are important. But it kind of, we just got to keep communicating and fighting for what we want. But I think in the next year or two, we need to sit down again and show some more recognition and figure out ways that people can be heard and how they want to move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Carole.
Volunteers are very important, and I can say I have volunteered all of my life and have enjoyed every minute that I volunteered, so.
Great. Okay, any questions? Oh, online? Okay,
To the non-incumbent candidates, how have you been involved in town governance this far? And if you're not elected, would you be willing to remain involved?
okay, yeah, let's start with the non-incumbents where that question is directed, but I will have a follow-up for the incumbents. So let's start over here with Marcey.
Again.
Yeah, Gail, could you read the question one more time?
How have you been involved in town governance this far? And if you're not elected, would you be willing to
So I first started, my first volunteer effort in, in Bradford was on the downtown designation group, back, I don't know when, 90s probably. Then I took a little break from that. That was a very strenuous volunteer effort that the group engaged in, and it was successful. But then I got on the planning commission, and I was on that for the next 10 or 15 years. And if I'm not successful in being elected to select board, of course, I'll stay involved. I am involved now. I weed at Elizabeth Park, and I volunteer. Right now I'm volunteering on AARP taxes. And so I feel that's a big part of what I can do now, as I have some extra time available. It's something that I feel really important to do for the town of Bradford.
Thank you. Ralph, can we go over to you?
I have not per se been in town governance before in my life, where I have some extra time and wanted to give back to the town. I thought it's a good way. If unsuccessful, yeah, I will find a way to remain active within the town, through volunteerism or maybe other committees or commissions or whatever, to keep moving forward, and to assist in the town to keep moving forward.
Great, thank you.
Alex, can I add something though? I will remind you, you are on the Public Safety Commission too, though. Ralph.
You're
I'll give you
right.
that.
I forgot.
I'll give you that.
Sorry. Thank you, Mike.
Forgot about that one.
And you're a firefighter.
Not anymore, every time.
Well, but you were.
Josh, over to you.
So as far as local politics, I haven't been super involved. I do keep kind of in contact with it. I do talk to the select board members from time to time about my concerns. I think I've been really active in the community in other ways, as far as volunteering for youth sports and things like that. Northeast Slopes is one of them, Bradford Community Development Corporation. So I hope that I can make a difference on the select board. And if I don't, I would like to be more involved in the town politics, because I would like to kind of help push it in the right direction.
Great, thank you. Carole? So let's start with, if you're not successful in winning election, would you want to stay involved in town governance and
I
how?
am anyway, so yes, I would.
Okay, well, how?
Well, I'm on the Developmental Review Board. I'm co-commissioner for the road crew. I don't remember what else I'm on, but I'm on several boards.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I'd probably still be involved. I read off all of the commissions and stuff I was a part of, just as a select board member. I just wanted to make sure there was no conflict of interest and such. I've been talking with Chief Carole about joining on the fire department, but I am older, but it just, you know, being on the select board, you know, trying not to have anyone say there's any favoritism or conflict of interest. So, yeah, I'd find a way still to stay involved because, you know, I have a lot of opinions and I pay taxes here and want to make sure that my opinions are heard as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions in the room? And I realize I haven't been looking back behind me. Okay,
Yes, Alex.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to know how all the candidates feel that with the people and open to the people in town. As regards things like the website, as regards things like participation in town events which are run by nonprofits and so forth, Globe Fest and things like that. How well do you think the select board is doing at being open and available to these venues?
Okay. Do we feel like does everyone understand the question? Okay, Marcy, do you want?
Me again?
Yes, and we'll go around.
Okay, I shouldn't have sat here.
It's like a blackjack table.
So, how involved are the select board in activities? Is that what, and supportive of activities in town? Is that what you're saying?
And website, which is
Oh.
a window into the town, documents, events, etc.
Okay,
All the things that people see who don't come to select board meetings and don't participate in actual government activities.
so as a member of the website, subcommittee, as you were, Paul, I've been really frustrated with the execution of the website since that time, because it could be doing so much more, than it is currently. I also was a user of the website and I found it, not as user-friendly as it was, marketed to us. I think in general, communication should be a focus of the select board in terms of how to get information out. The website, some sort of better communication in front of the academy with signage rather than those sandwich boards. And I also feel like select board members should be more involved in activities in the town. They should go to the Globe Festival and see how that's working personally, actually go to the listening room and see how that's going, go to the fair, and be out and about and really see what's happening. Go to, I don't have any children here, but I feel like I should go to some sports games to see how those are being conducted and how, you know, and who's attending and if there's any issues with it. I think by doing that and being boots on the ground for various activities in town, the select board would have a much better appreciation and understanding of how things are functioning, how the auditorium is working for, say, the Old Church Theater and other groups. Is if you go there, are there people saying certain things like, are there problems with the bathrooms or whatever? And really getting a feel for what's happening in the community.
I want to say I didn't ask this question as a setup for Marcy, even though it sounds like it.
Carol, do you want to tackle Paul's question?
Well, I don't use the website very often because I found it difficult when I tried, but, and I really have not participated in a lot of the programs here, but because of the meetings that I'm involved in between the church and the town and other things, that I have not had the time to do that.
Okay. Josh?
I think getting information out to people is probably not going well. I don't fault it on the select board for that. I think in general, technology is not used enough to get information out. One of the things that I find as a parent in the area, the school system uses a public address system where they send out text messages and emails and phone calls for key to get information out about meetings, about events, about things like that. You can opt out of them if you don't want to be bothered by them. And if you like getting that information and you want to be on top of it, you can opt in to get that. So I think that would be one way that if I was on the select board, I would try to help push in the direction of the town. Websites are complicated if you don't have the right person building it. specifically to the way that people want it, then it's one of those things, you have to spend money to make it work, and unfortunately, it's expensive, and I don't know that it's always the best way.
Mike?
Yeah, so I'll hit on the website first. We have talked in the past about a website coordinator. The board has talked about seeing if there's a town employee that could potentially put in excess hours that not necessarily have 40 hours. So that's ongoing work. I personally have been working with Danielle Kingsbury on a couple different edits and updates. One of them such as it lists on there what the board met with about ARPA ideas. She's working on compiling a list of what ARPA was spent on, so that can get out to the community to know. There is a setup that's on the website where if something gets added to the schedule of events, it can ping an email to those who sign up for that newsletter. So there is many options on there. It's just getting someone in to manage that. As far as communications out now, Danielle does send out mass emails with schedules and agendas. For those that want that, you email her, she'll put you onto that mailing as well. In the future, the website can do that as well. As far as the board visiting different events, again, we all have busy lives as well. I know I've seen other board members at different events such as Globe Fest and such. I think Moreau Benjamin works in Historical Society during that event. I've attended different skating events up at the Elizabeth Park and the fair, and different events with my kids as we can as well. I did this year, last year, we did go up to the run, up at the 24-hour run. I'm not even gonna try to go up it, but try to get out there just to see how those things are running. We go to different games. My kids don't play at high school, but we take my 7 and 8-year-old to watch high school games again, just to see how that communication is going. So, you know, I think everybody tries to get out there and see what's going on. You know, and EV charging stations had their grand opening just to see who shows up and how that's receptive from the town and such. But communications, it's a work in progress. And again, you know, if there's a way that someone has an idea, reach out to the select board or the interim town administrator and have your name added or give an idea how you feel that is a good way to communicate. So
Great, all right, perfect. Ralph?
On the website, I really don't know much about that stuff other than like Josh mentioned. I do know that if you want it to be user friendly, you're gonna have to spend a lot of money. I have kind of used the Bradford one a little bit, and I know that if you're trying to use it off a smartphone, it makes you feel really dumb. Because it doesn't work very good. But if you use it off a computer, it's navigable there. But communication is the key. There's a lot of people that don't use email and text messages and technology for communication still. And those are the people I think we need to reach. And as a select board, and as a town, you need to come up with a way to make sure those people that don't use that technology get the same information, whether it's some sort of a mass mailing or it's signboards or whatever at the town office, or, you know, maybe neighbor to neighbor works. You will see me out and about at different events. I tend to travel around town every now and then and check stuff out. So if elected, you will see me out.
Great, okay, thank you. Next, I'm gonna ask a question. It's come up a couple times already today, but I wanted to ask specifically because, well, we've heard the skate park come up a couple times, and this is a question that Bradford residents will be answering on Saturday, March 1st at town meeting. So I wanted to, there's a couple of articles on the town meeting warning related to the skate park, but I wanted to specifically get to the first one because that decides if we move on to the second one. And I wanted to ask everyone this question. That everyone in Bradford, and Ralph, I'm gonna be starting with you. So shall the town of Bradford proceed with the construction of a skate park at Elizabeth Park? Yes or no? Why or why not?
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question. I guess, I mean, I haven't followed it from the beginning. But my personal opinion is no. I just don't think it's something that's needed. I think it will open up the town for a lot of different stuff we might not like to happen in town. But again, if elected to the select board, you know, it's just not my opinion. I have to go with what's best for the town and the town's folks' opinion. So.
Okay, great, thank you, Ralph. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm the one that actually motioned to authorize them to move forward with, and one of the ones that voted for and moving forward with that.
So that's a yes.
Projects, yes.
Okay,
I was on those events. I grew up here in the nineties where I'd roll a blade skateboard downtown. I was one of the ones that Robert Nutting used to pick up and take my skateboard for me and stuff. So I know what it feels like to try to have a place. Everyone needs to have a safe place to do their item. I don't think that this project should impact taxpayers necessarily. We should go out to grant funding and such like that. There's a lot of other items that taxpayer dollars need to go towards. As far as the safety aspects of it, we let people, per se, for an example, put knives on their feet and go at our skate park. That's up there right now, the ice skate rink, and with limited accessibility and monitoring, and the is, in my mind, less dangerous than putting knives on your feet and going up there. So, they're gonna do it around town, and I'd rather have them in a safe place that is controlled and monitored than out here on the steps of the library or other places in downtown where they can run into people. So give them a safe place to do it, and let the committee keep fundraising and go in that route.
okay. Thank you, Mike. Josh, over to you.
So I think anytime we can give opportunity to people in our town or bring something to the town that's positive, I think it's worth looking into. I agree with Mike, taxpayer dollars are not necessarily the way to do it. I know there's been a lot of fundraising involved and a lot of talk about the skate park for a long time. I support it for the fact that it gives opportunity to a different group of children. Elizabeth's Park is a huge asset to the town of Bradford. People travel from all over different communities to come and use Elizabeth's Park. And I think adding that to Elizabeth's Park just gives something else to draw more people in. As somebody that travels around a lot, I go by the skate park in Lebanon often. And I think there's a little bit of stigma to skaters and what you see or what comes from it. And quite honestly, when I drive by that skate park, most of the time I see families doing stuff together, and I think that's really important. So if that brings something to Bradford that's positive, then great.
So that sounds like a yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol, over to you.
I'm in favor of it to a point. I don't know that it needs, I don't know how big it's going to be, but it sounds like the skate park is gonna be really big. I think that they should move it down a little so it's not quite as big, and not use taxpayer dollars for it.
But you'll be voting yes on Article 5 at town meeting on Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. Marcy?
I'm in favor of the skate park. I think it was, a well-researched, strong effort on the part of the skate park committee, Parks and Rec, in terms of, what the skate park will ultimately look like. And there's actually a meeting on Tuesday up at the firehouse about the skate park. So we all should go and see what they're talking about. And it's integrated into the, Elizabeth's Park. So it's not as large as you may think.
I've seen what's up there
Okay.
now.
Okay. I think it's really important for ARPA money to be used for community benefit. And while this is now described as surplus, it really is ARPA money. It's not, it did not come from taxpayer money. It is money that came to help invigorate our communities. And so I think we should honor that and vote for the skate park. They would use that 200,000 along with fundraising and with grant money, and it is envisioned as not costing the town any personal property tax money.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marcy. Any questions online?
No.
Anyone in the room? Oh, we got one. Peter.
Yes, I received a postcard from Marcey Carver regarding her candidacy. And I'd like to ask both her and the rest of the group. Yeah, on your postcard, you suggested the possibility of a local option tax. That would be an additional sales tax over and above the 6% that we already pay. So around the room, in favor of having this optional sales tax.
Are you in favor of having an optional sales tax? Marcy, since that question was directed to, in response to your postcard, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So a local option tax is a 1% sales tax. It has to first be approved by the select board and then go to the voters, I believe. It can be just on rooms and meals. It can just be on retail sales. You can really select what you want. And it's a way to raise revenue based on how people spend their money. So it won't raise property taxes per se. it won't raise it at all. You'll generate revenues from a different, vehicle, so you'll. And it's based on like all those Amazon purchases could generate some revenues to the town. People that go to the Colatina. Everybody from all over will be generating some money, and of that 1% sales tax, 70% comes back to the town. So it's just another means of raising revenues to help deliver services in the town. I think I also mentioned things like Project TIFs, which the legislature has not approved yet, but would enable some public-private financing to improve development. It might work with something like the Bradford veneer mill, where the town would invest some funds to get that project going, and then an investor would come in and do the rest, and the town would get paid back. Sometimes beyond what they invested.
Question, you indicated that it's a 1% tax, is that a state law, or could it be 2, or could it be 3?
It's limited to 1%.
By state law?
Yes. I think that's right.
Mike, did you want to tackle this question?
Yeah, I read Marcy's postcard as well. I would have a tough time at first. I'd have to study it a lot more, because to me, it feels like you'd be picking and choosing on who's gonna do this tax. You know, are we gonna add tax onto gated admission at Barrett Speedway because that's a popular place, but not the fair because the attendance is down? Or would it be, okay, Colatina because more patrons go there, but not necessarily Hungry Bear because it's down the other end? And I think if it was a tax right across the board evenly, then that would be different than picking and choosing where this 1% would come from. So I'm not very familiar, as Marcy may probably more have done homework into it, but at this point, I wouldn't be in favor of it.
I just wanted to explain, it's not selected by business, it's like across the board, so it would be all hotels or all restaurants.
Josh?
I hate the word taxes. Additional tax in the town of Bradford, because we have a real struggle with small businesses in this town as it is. Williston is a good example. They have an additional tax there. So when you go do your Christmas shopping and you may drive to Williston to do it, and you pay your bill, and at the end you look and you pay additional taxes to the town of Williston. I don't think that that's fair to the businesses in the town of Bradford. Big city living, maybe it works. Small town, I think it's a terrible idea. I think it puts a lot of stress on the local businesses that we don't need. We need more businesses here. And I think if we were able to do that, then we could probably raise more taxes on the property than the other way around. So,
Ralph?
Absolutely against any further tax. Don't like that word. Scares me. It just means I'm losing more money. And I don't know.
Okay. Carol?
I'm opposed to it. Plain and simple, I'm opposed to it.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna wind it down unless anyone has any questions online or in the room. I do want to give everyone, all the candidates, an opportunity just to make a closing statement or address something that was said earlier in the meeting, just anything you wanted to say. And so I'll give each of you 2 minutes. Okay, all right, so why don't we start? I've been starting with Marcy all day, right? So let me start with Ralph. Ralph, did you have something you wanted to say in conclusion?
No, I don't have anything else I want to say.
Okay,
So,
Mike?
Yeah, no, just to reiterate that, you know, if reelected, I'll keep going on what I've been doing the past 2 years. You know, I feel I've been very vocal. I listen to everyone's opinions. I don't just show up to meetings with the packet in hand. You'll see me on my laptop. It's because I have the packet with highlights. I reach out to different phone calls and get information ahead of time. I'm willing to jump on the different boards. You know, I was actually on, you know, very, you know, with the town administrator, I was on that subcommittee. With the full-time Parks and Recreation Director, I pushed to get that here in town, which has been beneficial for after-school programs, summer camps. And there's a lot more on the horizon coming as far as like economic development, website coordinator and others. Including making the fire department, town employees and such as well. There's a lot of ordinance and policies that we've worked on, such as person policy, and with Marcy when she was on the planning commission with this sign ordinance. And there's a lot of other ordinances coming through, like code of ethics and stuff that really take a lot of homework. And whoever is on the board, it's not just showing up Thursdays. There's a lot of homework behind the scenes, and whoever is on the board, just be willing to do that. And I'll be willing to do that moving forward.
Thank you, Mike. Josh?
fun time. Well, thank you first off for having this meeting. I think it was great to get a little bit of information from everybody involved. I think probably the biggest thing for me is, I really want to invest a lot more time into the community to try to steer it in the right direction, and I think that the select was a good spot to do that. I think that being a person who's kind of an open book with people, if you have questions or concerns, please reach out personally. Pretty easy to find me on social media or anything like that if you need to. So I guess that's it.
Okay, Carol?
I think it's an honor and a privilege to be on the select board, and I feel I have the time and energy to do it, so I'm hoping to get elected.
Thank you, Carol. And Marcy?
A couple of things. One is, I think with the local option tax, it sort of crystallized my concern with the way that the select board has been operating. I think it's worth looking into. Michael expressed worth looking into. It's a complicated subject. It would be something definitely that we would reach out to the businesses to see how they would feel about it, and have a discussion. I think to just simply say no because you don't like taxes is the problem that we've had with some of the decisions made by the select board. We really need to be thoughtful in what we look into. And if I am so fortunate to be elected, and I agree with Carol, it would be an honor and a privilege to be elected. I would bring my financial expertise to the select board to focus on the budget and ongoing monitoring of how the town is doing financially. And come up with creative ways to raise money, including grants, look into the local option tax and other options. As an example, the fire truck that's also much needed by the town. We have a significant amount in reserve, I think close to 400,000. That won't pay for the fire truck. I think they cost about $1 million. But as with Fairly, what they're looking at is doing $150,000 down payment and then $50,000 a year for financing. And I think that's an intel rather than paying the full $1 million up front. We can finance it. That's another way to look at how we can productively keep up our resources and not raise property taxes.
Okay, thank you, Marcy. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I know I've said town meeting is on Saturday, March 1st, but just as a reminder that all the officer voting, including the select board candidates at the table, will be on Tuesday, March 4th. Thank you very much for coming out and asking great questions. Thanks.
Oh.
Yes.
I wanted to make a suggestion. You probably only use certain.
Maybe, maybe not.
Got it short.
Why
don't you
Yeah.
guys, the next time you meet with V Grant,
I know it's worked in the past, so I don't know why it's doing that now, but I'll let our provider know. Huh.
set
Okay,
up a.
thank you. It must be something that happened the last time it got updated.
So V-Trans talked to that,
Right.
Ryan,
Yeah.
and see what the town administrator for.
Unfortunately, because it's
Governor.
I doubt it will be
Felt
fixed
that
until
it's gonna be
before
easier.
Tuesday, Monday's a
Not
holiday,
very
so
late
so our vendor.
It's easier.
So we might actually
To shut
just
it down and take.
leave it until we update it on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning.
Because I said, you got that open.
Okay, but I'll let you know. Thank you for the heads up. And thank you for the questions.
No more games. And they said, it's like, it's.
To alert the vendor.
Like my dog. Server.
Yeah, no, we don't want to build something that's like another.
Carol, and I couldn't get out. And the lights, and like, I go, wow, I got extra half.
I think you guys should label it.
I know.
Yep.
Set up a two.
And then.
So-
Remember the fire truck, actually, I was talking with Chief Carole and them,
Okay.
and the price of the fire truck right now is at 980,000. They have 485 in the entire bill. Well, the problem with the fire truck is next year, that same fire truck is going up $88,000. So the $100,000 budget, they have to put on top of further. So they looked at an option, they can give it to me for a truck for $250,000 down, $100,000 a year for 6 years, and then buy it. So that's the way they're going. The problem right now is if you put 250 out of that reserve, you're down to like, down to $280,000.
20-mile radius.
So everybody's, Dave was like some of the surplus money that.
Because we don't build it small.
Because that's what happens. We're gonna have to add at least 250,000 in the budget next year. Because you gotta make it, what you're losing with the price increase.
Well, all right.
Yeah, Carol.
So what Dave is thinking, and then what Gary said. So Dave.
When I was-
Right.
Yeah.
That's the-
Hold on.
So Gary was gonna show up, and they're talking to you guys as far as.
And I go down there. I want to build up a video.
That's
He
the
was
thing, you
there.
get the loan. and you-
And
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
There's
You're welcome.
I mean, this is.
It's very long, isn't it?
This is.
Now,
I could add it for
At 9 a.m.
But all I can get is a little bit.
I'm trying to tell you. 9 a.m. on Monday, noon.
So how many
Not
people
that
do you have?
afternoon.
Not
Then
that.
Thursday. I mean, so it's just.
For Zoom, I mean.
Yeah.
You could borrow money from these local banks.
Yeah.
10.
This is the. Yeah, people.
Maybe from taxpayers.
I know. Well, Saturday's tough. Yeah.
You can zoom in.
Well, thank you all if you can still hear me. I'm trying to figure out how to text you all. But I'm gonna leave the meeting now. Thanks for coming.
But in, yeah, exactly.